Welcome. We are broadcasting from the Mint studio where we're going to discuss the first union budget by the Modi-led NDA government. Joining me in the studio today is Mint's editor Sukumar Ranganathan, Mint's deputy managing editor Anil Padmanabhan, and Mint Money's editor Monica Halan. Thank you so much for joining me. So to just start off, the first question is, ahead of the union budget, Arun Jaitley had identified three main challenges, one being fiscal consolidation, the other being curbing inflation, as well as boosting economic growth. Now that the budget is out, do you think that the budget is aligned with addressing these three challenges? Sukumar, I'll start with you first.
I think there's one big picture, right? I think in many ways the deficit and inflation are secondary issues. The primary issue is reviving growth, because if growth becomes bigger, obviously it's a numerator-denominator kind of issue. Your deficit shrinks. And growth won't be possible unless you remove several supply-side bottlenecks, which should help bring inflation down. So I think you have to look at whether it's done enough to revive growth. And even in that, I think more than the concrete steps that are there, I think you should look at whether a growth path is clear, whether a beginning has been made. And I think from that perspective, this budget is an extremely good budget. It does a lot of these things. It talks the right talk, and budgets largely talk, right? They're followed up by the walk, which is all the nitty-gritty of actual governance. And if this government gets that right, and in many aspects, in many ways, that was supposed to be the strength of this government, right? It's administrative ability. If they do get that right, maybe we are in for better times.
Anil, do you share the same thoughts?
Yeah, I would in fact add to what Sukumar is saying. First off, I don't think we should look at this budget as whether it does these three things, because this budget, if you look at it in a very holistic manner, to add to what Sukumar is saying, is a very transition budget which prepares India from this government's point of view to a new scenario altogether. So as our tagline goes, rebooting India, this is a rebooting India budget. So this is the first step in that direction, and in that sense I think they have done an extremely good job. So this marries the aspirational India into a new kind of scenario where you people are going to be taught how to fish and not given fish.
Monica, what's
You're
your
right. Absolutely, I agree with both of them. And so BJP has come to power on the back of this buoyant middle class, which is now a substantial voting chunk as well. And to that extent, he has, even though he's got no money right now to give, he's managed to give a little bit of income tax sweetener to this middle class in terms of the raising of the threshold. Tax rates remain the same, but if you collect incentives that he's given, an average family will have about 35,000 rupees more in a year. That's not small potatoes, given that we've not had anything like that for the past few years. And there is a promise for more in terms of if we do manage to grow and there is more money, I think there will be more tax benefits. To that extent, I think he's done extremely well.
So another point is, when you're talking of fiscal tightening, the quality of fiscal consolidation is quite important. And it was always mentioned that there should be a coordinated approach between the monetary and fiscal policy. Do you think this budget is aligned to that?
If you were to look at this budget, it's a very bottom-up kind of budget. There are lots of little things that have been done. You have the ingredients in place, right? And it needs to sort of, all these ingredients have to manifest themselves in the form of a desired end product, right, which does what is required. So I don't think we need to look at this balance between fiscal and monetary concerns and things like that. We all know that that's important. It's economics 101. That's how you run a company, that's how you run a country. But I think over the last 10 years we've sort of drifted away from that, and many of the things that really helped India take advantage of extremely conducive global macroeconomic conditions, which resulted in 8% plus growth in the mid-2000s, were just forgotten, right? So between 2004 and 2014, we significantly drifted away from that. And I think this budget, like Anil put it, is a transitory budget. In many ways, this is a budget where you prepare for the leap, the step function, right? You prepare for the step function and you move to that, and then you move forward from there. So from that perspective, I think we have all the beginnings in place, we have all the ingredients in place. we'll have to see what happens.
Just to explain this point further, the relationship between the fiscal policy and monetary policy is not necessarily linear. So the Reserve Bank of India is making a larger point that the entire fiscal slippage, which Sukumar was alluding to, has created a sense of indiscipline in central government spending, which I think the signals are very clear. He's promised to go after subsidies. So if he actually did that, he would have politically derailed this budget even before it started. So he's created an expenditure commission which will now go into addressing issues of subsidies. Last week there was a meeting where the Prime Minister chaired and he talked about targeting the subsidies. So this government, actually this budget is a rightward shift. So I think we should not be under any illusion that they are going to go after a lot of these subsidies issues. They don't have any ideological issues in going after it. So what the most important lesson you have to draw, if I was RBI, is that yes, those milestones have been created. Now he has to achieve them.
Also, it was good to hear him coming back to the FRBM targets. I mean,
exactly.
You just hear 3% fiscal deficit target is music. And I'm sure revenue deficit he's talking of is zero, which is the way it was supposed to be, 10 years back. So it's just good to hear that, because once that does happen, then the RBI governor has much more elbow room once the fisc is in control. So again, he can't fix it in a year, but at least there's a roadmap to say, okay, 3% by 2016.
And that commitment in many ways was what I think the Reserve Bank was looking for. Yeah. That commitment was not coming from the previous government. Like this Fiscal Responsibility and Budgetary Management Act had really been put in abeyance, right? All the targets had been missed. And I think RBI wanted some statement, some articulation of intent that this would take center stage of the entire fiscal management process again. And that signal is very, very clear. It's an unambiguous signal that they're going to sharply focus on that.
So you don't think he accepting the 4.1% of the GDP fiscal deficit target is ambitious? It's something that shows intent and shows an interest in trying to revive the economy?
Yeah, as in it's a good thing to do, right? As in when you set out to do something, you will have to start with the belief that you're going to do it. If you start with the belief that you're going to not do it, I don't think it makes any sense. And I'm very happy that he's actually been brave enough to sit down and say, like, listen, I'm going to take this. Because also, remember, if he misses it, it's not as if people are going to say, oh, it's all right, you tried and all. The rating agencies will be pretty harsh about it. His job, he's under a microscope and he knows it. So it's a fairly brave decision to take that target.
And how do you explain how the markets are reacting? It's a very confusing reaction. How do you explain that?
I think Monica should take
Yeah, right. Markets, I think, are reacting to different pieces of news, and as it digests the fine print better, it goes up or down. So I think we've ended with 70 points down, and that possibly is because they figured out that the dividend distribution tax is actually going to hit them by 3 percentage points more than it was before. So I think market is reacting to the fine print in the budget, but it isn't as bad as we started out to be. It tanked when the speech began, and then slowly as the proposals came in, we saw the market going back. So I think we should, to be fair, give it a week for everybody to digest the budget before we say markets are happy or sad. Markets are overall very happy.
So to end this discussion, I'm going to quote some of things that you said in the 2013 budget, when the 2013 budget came out, and I want to know whether you hold the same stance or it's different. So I'm going to start with you, Sukumar, and you said that the budget 2013 says the right things in terms of politics and doesn't say the wrong things in terms of economics. Do you still hold on to that thought?
About 2014?
Yes.
Well, 2013 budget actually it ended up doing nothing, right? As in, it said a lot of things and many of those things were not done. So 2014 budget, I don't know whether it says the right things politically or not. And actually, we are now in a position of luxury where it doesn't really matter whether you say the right things politically or not. It's not going to affect this government in any way. It's a government which has just taken over. It's a government which has taken over with a significant majority. I don't think they should be worried about it, and I don't think they will be worried about it. Economically, it says all the right things.
Do you agree with him? Politically, it doesn't say much?
No, I think politically and economically it is a perfect budget given the current circumstances, and I think we should recognize there's a paradigm shift underway. It is very difficult when you're in the middle of that battle to see it, But I would stick my neck out and say that this is a budget which marks the transition.
Monica, any views?
I'm looking at it as a roadmap to the real big budget for this government a few months down the line. The time was very short, and you cannot shift something which is going in one direction to the other direction overnight, because you will destroy a lot in that process. So it's a transition, as Anil has said, and we should wait for the next, not just the next one budget, but few budgets to really move the whole economy to the right, the way the indications are that it will be.
Which could mean that budget for 2015-16 may actually be a big bang budget, right? That.
Okay. So Anil, you famously said, if you can't do good, don't do harm. You hold on to that thought?
Yeah, this government, they haven't done any harm. I don't think so. I mean, the markets differ, but I think that's a difference in perception. Like Monica says, it'll give them a week, they will come around. So I think they've definitely done good, and they've done, I think one of us dropped the phrase somewhere in the discussion saying feel good. And there is a feel good about this budget, which is part of the ethos.
So Monica, you felt that Chidambaram had given a decisive statement on the implementation of the FLRC report, which is deep reform of the financial sector. Do you think this budget also gives some support to that?
That's the positive thing about this government, that I see that they are not just throwing away the projects of the previous government just because they are from a different government. You look at the commitment to the Indian Financial Code, the FSLRC. You look at several of the, like UID for instance, so it's not part of this budget, but they're just carrying forward some of the good work that the previous government had done. And personally, I think it's a great win for consumers in the financial sector, because the Indian Financial Code really puts consumers at the heart of the financial system. So personally, I am very, very happy that we're going to actually see this new financial code come into being.
Great. Well, on that positive note, thank you so much for joining me. Hope you all enjoyed watching the show. For more, keep watching.